Hey everyone. Okay, there we go. For everyone who has not heard me talk yet this conference, I'm a master's student at UCL. I am one of those people that was in archaeology and has now left archaeology. So I'm doing comparative education. Um, in this little bit, I'm gonna be talking more about the some of the academic concepts that John brings up in his book and kind of elaborating on that. And I'm going to be one of those opinionated people that says, oh, maybe these things are not radical enough, I guess, and how that really works in reality and why these idea of small wins doesn't exactly work. And so the way I'm going to talk about it is essentially talking about how these wicked problems that John introduces, I'm going to say, actually, the idea of entanglement and the way that works is that all of these problems are really social justice problems, right? They're all social injustices because the way social justice issues are defined are the way I've kind of put it there. And there's about 1,000 more you can add onto it. And it goes because it's economic inequalities, racial injustices, and because of that entangled nature, everything is everything. And so I'm going to introduce these academic concepts that are also kind of real concepts and then show that juxtaposition and then talk a little bit more about politics, like I've already done this conference, and then talk about some attitudes and actions of archaeologists and archaeological institutions. First one is the idea of polycrisis. So I know John talked about entanglement, but I'm going to talk about polycrisis just for a second. And I know we talk about entanglement like they're all related to each other, but there's also a very real thing happening in the world right now and in all of our countries, whichever country you're from, or if you're all British, that's cool because it's happening in the UK, which is that there are many different crises happening and they're all happening at the same time. And they don't all have to be connected to each other. And you can identify and understand them as separate incidents as well, right? So there's international conflict, Ukraine, there is UK involvement in that. And there's economic crises, cost of living, that's been going on for a while, austerity, a whole long time, health and climate crisis, NHS, climate crisis, I don't know, ages, whatever. And that's a state that the country is in, but it's also a state that the world is in, right? And now I'm going to talk about neoliberalism. That's everyone's favorite word. Now, there's a bunch of different definitions on here because I couldn't pick one. But broadly speaking, it is basically when um, you kind of want it's a way that a government is essentially decides that the state should be run, and it's to essentially deregulate, privatize everything. So it's a really nice segue from what Sadie was talking about, essentially, and it's to privatize everything and kind of deregulate everything. So there's no state ownership on anything, and it's yeah, yeah, and there's no so things like NHS that kind of exist right now, they would even, be further more and more privatized. And it's using the market to govern and distribute services. And this started in the UK at Thatcher. And then there's another concept, which is capitalism, which is often confused and conflated with neoliberalism. And the entire reason I'm talking about this is because this is using social and economic system in which industries and the means of production are privately owned and they're operated for profit. And this is the reason why it's really easy for us to buy anything we want at any given point in time that we want it, right? Um, oh, and just quickly, the reason capitalism and neoliberalism work together so well is because together they make it really easy, right? So globalization, open markets, free trade, global mobility, all of these things are the reason why they work together really well. And they also make these social justice issues really, really difficult to solve and make them these wicked problems. So the juxtaposition that I have here is that social justice is inherently something that is about collective action. It's about collective responsibility, whereas neoliberalism is about individual responsibility and it's about individual action. It's about individual markets. But social justice wants to see markets shaped by historical injustices, whether that's colonialism or, slave trades and things like that, whatever it is, but neoliberalism and capitalism, they want to see markets as neutral and fair, and that it's all fine. If you can buy it, you can do it. If you can access universities, you can pay the fees, you can go to them, and that's fine, but social justice, it wants state intervention. It wants it, if you can't access it, it wants you to make it available for you, right? And social justice also wants and demands that the growth, and it also questions these things, right? And it also demands that the growth and the profits go to those that and benefit those that are being marginalized. Whereas neoliberalism says, well, we want economic growth, right? And and usually it says the profits are going to the ones that are already the wealthiest. It doesn't care about equal distribution of the profits. It just goes to the ones at the top. Now, there's another conflict. I didn't want to call it a big juxtaposition. And this was another concept that John introduced, which was about donut economics. Now, I really like this idea because it's really utopian and it really forces us to put our morals right up there and live in that little bubble. But again, conflicts with neoliberalism because it demands systemic redesign to center people and the planet and not profits, right? And it relies essentially on shared resources and cooperation, which neoliberalism does not. It says markets and individualism will solve problems through growth, and that everyone is rational and they're self-interested actors and that they will be successful if they follow their own goals. And also the problem with donut economics that in the current neoliberal world is that there is a trade-off that most people don't understand when they invoke donut economics, right? Which is that many developing nations or poorer nations, however you want to call them, haven't reached their social foundations or, ecological ceiling. Essentially, they're not rich enough, right? They don't have enough resources, right? And if you create donut economics and close that ceiling, then they are basically stuck in poverty because you've decided, no, we have enough resources, so we're calling it. But what? Like, this is it. They're stuck now because you've decided to call it, and you essentially still perpetuate that trap of poverty and keep them stuck. So this doesn't work because essentially you are still trading it off. They're still stuck in poverty, and you're still perpetuating those cycles of, all of those historical conflicts and things like that that have been going on, and domination and colonialism, etc., whatever. And anyway, so I'm going to talk a second about politics, which is what can we really do, right? And think about the political spectrum a little bit and parties and their policies, and think about them in social justice. That's what you can do. Don't just vote for a party because you've been doing it forever. Think about what it means for the world, about the country, about the people. And lastly, I kind of just have one thing to say, and this might be a little bit controversial, but, and I apologize for this, John, but there is a fundamental cultural problem here. And by that, I mean, it was a great book. And no, it's not, there isn't a but, right? There isn't a but. The but is on archaeologists and institutions, which is that I know so many young people and so many people of color and um, just let's just say marginalized people, because I don't really know what to say anymore else, or like early careers people that have been saying the same things that John has said in this book, if not in some more nuanced ways, for years and years. And I mean, I've said it at these conferences for years, and everyone gets told off, or they get called radical, or they get told to ignored. But John wrote a lovely book, which is lovely, right? And that's not the point here. But then there is, you know, all of this press about what a lovely book it is. And like, I hate to say it, but it is because ultimately he is an oldish white man that has written this book. And there is, you know, this press, and there's a whole closing plenary like given away about it. And there, that is a cultural problem in archaeology and in so many industries about this. And like, I don't know. That's all I'm gonna say about that. And also, I know we've been to a lot of different sessions before I wrap up about social, that have discussed social capital and cultural capital individually. And I'm just gonna say that you can't and these are all concepts by Bourdieu, and I've been doing a lot of Bourdieu recently, and you can't discuss social capital and cultural capital individually without paying attention to economic capital and symbolic capital. They're all relational topics, and you have to consider them together or not consider them at all. And I'll ignore those. But yeah, thank you.